Welcome back to the newest and latest episode of the Exchange for Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm your host, James Black, and today I am thrilled to be joined by my colleague, Rob Cook, who is situated in Toronto. Rob, I've worked with you a long time, and certainly we've seen you on the show before, actually, in our Israel episode, a few episodes back. And the reason, obviously, I wanted to bring you back was because we were recently on a trip, and the trip was far and away from where you are today. As far as Uganda and Rwanda in Africa, two places I'd never been. But Rob, maybe for our viewers and listeners, just tell us what motivated you to go to these new destinations and to meet some of the people we're going to hear from on the show today.
Okay. Well, actually, I was in Israel again. Had some really good meetings with entrepreneurs in Tel Aviv, and I had the opportunity to go to Africa with a part-time colleague, Mark Francis, who has an interest in a gold processing operation there, which is not started. But this was an exploratory trip where we were meeting with people in the finance community and to a certain extent in government and some entrepreneurs. Most of that was in Uganda, but we also had very interesting time, 3 days in Rwanda.
Understood. And so, and just for those watching, we are going to queue up a couple of interviews that Rob had with locals on his trip. And before we get into that, and we'll start with Robert Twibaze from Rwanda, but before we get into that, I just want to know your impressions. What surprised you the most about your visits to these countries, and maybe something that sprung on you that you didn't expect to see or hear or eat, for that matter?
Okay. Well, surprisingly, not a lot of stories about the food, but it was all palatable. It was all good. But what did surprise me was that it was a couple of things. One was just the positivity of the people that we met, and people of all ages and occupations. It didn't matter whether they were entrepreneurs, whether they were owners, or whether they were just people that worked somewhere. They were all pretty positive. They were all looking to the future, and they were all very interested in us seeing their companies or their countries, in a good light. So they were very positive about their own countries. So that was a good thing. Another thing that surprised me was both countries are ruled by so-called strongmen who have been in power for some time, and yet there's freedom of the press. I'm reading the paper and I'm going, whoa, they're criticizing the government for this, for that, for the other thing. It didn't feel like anybody was repressed in any way. And that just sort of went from their ordinary life through their occupation.
Right. And so I think we'll get a taste of that right now. I'm going to introduce the clip now with Robert Twibaze from Rwanda, and just maybe set this one up. What is his business and what does he do?
Robert Twibaze is a hotelier who has established 2 hotels in Rwanda. He's still growing. He still has more opportunities for growth. We certainly talked to him about that when we were there. He has done this basically bootstrapping these occupations. He started as a driver/tour guide, and then he decided, hey, we need more restaurants, hotels for all these tours. And he's built 2 himself, and both of them are outstanding.
Wonderful. With a great introduction, Rob, and we'll roll the clip right now.
Today, I am in the beautiful city of Kigali in the country of Rwanda. Rwanda is a modern, politically stable, and business-friendly environment. At the moment, I'm in the Governor's Residence Hotel, which is a brand new boutique hotel on one of the hills surrounding the city. And I'm here with the hotel owner, Mr. Robert Twibaze, who has built the hotel himself, and it's the second in his portfolio. And we're here to talk to him about his experience as an entrepreneur in Rwanda. Robert?
Yes.
Very nice to be here.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. Yes. How did you get your start in the hotel business?
That's a very good question. Thanks, Rob. You know, I've been in the tourism industry for some good years.
Yes.
I joined the industry in 1999
Okay.
as a tourist guide.
You were a tourist guide.
Yes,
Very nice.
Yes, I was a tourist guide. I was among the first guides right after when tourism resumed after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi.
Yes.
And I started from there. And you know, most of our tourists come to see the mountain gorillas.
Yeah, we're right. The gorillas are very popular here.
Yeah, in the Volcanoes National Park.
Right.
So there was a shortage of accommodation or restaurants, nothing. We had only one place for eating, only one place
Really?
in the volcanoes.
Okay.
So that place we would go there. You know, when you come back from tracking the gorillas, you are hungry.
Yes.
When you order food and it takes 2 hours, it makes you more hungry now.
Okay.
So every time I had clients and complained about the food taking long and not even having the right food they wanted, I started thinking of building a restaurant around the Volcanoes National Park.
So you started with the idea of a restaurant.
Yes, the idea started as a restaurant. It did not start as a hotel.
Right.
So when I started building the restaurant, I noticed that the land was big enough to put some rooms. So I put 7 rooms on the property.
Right.
And after some time, the neighbors accepted to sell me the land nearby.
Yes.
I added another 7 years. So I started with a 14 rooms boutique hotel in the Volcanoes National Park, which is the 5 volcanoes hotel in the area.
Right. So it's now the 5 Volcanoes Hotel.
Yeah.
And when did you get the idea to build another hotel in the city?
In the city. So this is the reason. Being a small hotel, we started getting demands of clients who don't want to stay in big hotels.
Right.
So, example, someone is like, I was born and raised in New York. It's a noisy place. I don't want to go to another country on a holiday and be in a big business hotel. I prefer something small. So I noticed that combining the governor's residence and the 5 volcanoes, it would be a good deal.
Yes.
And then I came up with an idea of the governor's residence, which has only 7 rooms. It's smaller than the 5 volcanoes.
Yes.
But it's big, and we will see. Maybe in future we might, if the demand becomes too much, we may expand it and have more rooms.
Very good. Very good. Well, it certainly is well appointed. And you've just opened in January?
Yes, just opened in January. I think we haven't got so many clients so far, but we have bookings ahead.
Yeah, bookings ahead. Okay.
2024 is promising. This summer is promising from May. So I think by end of the year, it's going to be everywhere. Everybody will be knowing about it.
Is this a good example of how the economy is growing quickly here? You start a hotel, you open in January, and you already have bookings for next year.
Oh yes, it's good because I think people after spending like 2 years of not traveling to 3 years, because some people postpone their trips from 2020.
Yes.
Now this is the time. Now they are
So
coming.
there's pent-up demand.
Yes. So the demand is high. So it won't be hard for me to market this place or to get it known to travelers.
And how do you market this place?
Social media.
Social media? Yeah.
Word of mouth, and our previous guests that have stayed with us for the past 6 years since we opened. So we keep data for all the people we receive. So when this came up, we sent a newsletter.
Right.
And to the travel agents, most travel agents who bring guests to 5 volcanoes,
Right.
they already know this place.
So how did you finance the building of these hotels?
Through banks.
Through banks?
Yes. First of all, you have to raise your 30%.
Okay.
Because for them, you have to have land.
Yes.
And for the total amount of the costs of the construction and everything, at least you have to have 30% as your own contribution.
Right.
And 70% you go to the local bank.
All right.
And
you were able to borrow some money in order to actually finance the building.
Yes.
Right.
But there is a challenge to that as well.
Yes.
When they lend you money, you are building a hotel and the construction is going to take 2.5 to 3 years, but you start paying immediately. Because the money is to build the hotel is not in operation yet, but you already start paying. That's the challenge number one.
Right.
Yeah, but...
so you finance this hotel partly with cash flow from the Five Volcanoes Hotel.
So this was pure cash flow from Five Volcanoes.
But the Five Volcanoes Hotel, you had to finance with cash flow from your business as a tour guide.
Yes. From the beginning,
Right.
Yeah.
And you have obviously very professional and customer-oriented staff here. Where do you find them?
Now, these are local guys. I just find them. And what I do, I don't go to other hotels and pick up people who have been working there. I just go get young people who haven't been in the industry and train them from scratch.
Okay.
And that's the best way to do it. Because when you bring someone who has been somewhere,
yes,
they start telling you that, where I was, we were doing it this way, so I think here you should do it. So when you have new, fresh people, they go with what you have there and they become very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's actually a connection between Kigali and Toronto in the general manager of the Toronto Raptors, Masai Ujiri.
Yes.
And he's going to be your neighbor?
He's going to be my neighbor, not far from here. He's going to build a hotel. I think he's starting next year.
All right.
Not far from here, but it's going to be good. He's coming up with something, I think, that we did not have a nice high-end 5-star hotel in Kigali.
Very nice. So, but he will no doubt be also bringing in more Canadians.
Oh yes, that's very right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kigali is already one of the most beautiful cities in East Africa.
Yes, you're right about that. Yeah, we are so clean. Everybody like to see the city clean. We don't have plastic bags.
Right.
No plastic bags. You cannot see any plastic bottle anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, so we try to keep the city clean. And, every last Saturday of the month, everybody goes on the street to clean
Very
the
nice.
streets. Yeah.
So that's part of the secret.
Yes.
Because it's very clean, very orderly. The traffic is orderly.
Yes.
All the people on motorcycles wear helmets. It's an interesting and bustling city.
Yeah, and another thing is when these are law-abiding citizens, when you tell them do this, they will do it. If you say no plastic bags around, they will listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of what we see here is built after the genocide, so less than 20 years.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's become such a modern and efficient city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and most of the new buildings you see even 10 years old.
Right.
Yeah, they started building 15 years ago, and construction is booming.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Well, it's delightful to see, and hopefully we will get some shots of the city from here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can get some nice shots. When it clears, after the rain, you can get some nice shots.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been very nice to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. It was nice talking to you too.
All right, great job, great interview, Rob. Way to start things, and a few things that stuck with me from watching that was number one, that was pure entrepreneurism, I guess you call it. Someone just making something out of absolutely nothing, serving a market need, which I think is what entrepreneurs do. They look at the world and they go, how can I make life better? How can I serve people? How can I, in this case, make these tourists that we're visiting have a better experience? And obviously it sounds like he's got big plans moving forward from this. What are some of the maybe things that you've noticed on your travels that are innate to entrepreneurship, whether it's in Canada, Israel, Africa? What are some of the things, just one or two things that you think are almost global in that sense that you find in all entrepreneurs from all walks of life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certainly, lots of different entrepreneurs, but for the most part, they jump in with both feet. They see what they want to do and they just go and do it. And they don't worry about how risky it is. and lots of them end up losing. But a lot of them win. And while they're doing that, they're doing something that they want to do, so they enjoy it as well. And I certainly saw that in both those countries where there's a lot of growth, and there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess our next interviewee is a great example of that, Mark Mutaahi from Uganda. Now,
Right.
maybe just give us a quick bit of background about Mark and his experience.
Well, Mark actually came to Canada to go to university. He got a couple of degrees here. He went into the financial sector. He worked in Edmonton. He worked in New York, and then and he worked for large banking organizations. And then he decided, hey, there are opportunities back in Uganda. That's my home country. He went and he joined a firm called Bid Capital, and then he became the managing partner, and he's built that business up over the past several years in both Uganda and Rwanda.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, without further ado, I will now roll the clip for Mark Mutaahi from Uganda.
Great.
And I'm here in Kampala, Uganda, today with Mark Mutaahi, who's the managing director of a local finance company called Bid Capital Partners. Mark, welcome from the CSE.
Thank you, Rob.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And I understand that you spent some time in Canada.
Yes, Rob. I'm born and raised here, but I moved out to Canada in 2001.
Yes.
And at the end of 2012, I returned back home.
Okay. And while you were in Canada, you went to university?
Yes, so I did my undergrad in Edmonton, Alberta, University of Alberta. And then later on, I did my master's degree at the University of Ottawa, my MBA.
Very good. Very good. And you had a short career in the finance
industry? For a few years, I worked for the Royal Bank of Canada in Edmonton. And while I was there, I did everything from retail banking to a bit of wealth management. And then after my school, I moved out to Ontario. I moved out to Toronto, where I worked with Capital One.
And what brought you back to Uganda?
So initially, I was supposed to only go for 4 years for my undergrad. My entire family lives here, as always has.
Right.
And so, but that turned into 12 years. After which, I made the decision to come back home on the thinking that, potentially, I felt professionally there'd be more opportunity here. Felt it was time to come back, give back, and for personal reasons, I also came back here and met my wife, started a family.
So now you are fully ensconced in the finance business?
Yes, I am. So on return, I spent a few years doing some entrepreneurship work in the wash sector, in climate finance.
Yes.
Then later on, which is what I'm doing today, I moved into investment advisory work, supporting local entrepreneurs to raise capital.
Right. And what kind of businesses are those entrepreneurs in?